right, we'll go ahead and get started here. Let me get my screen caught up. There we go. All right, so this morning we're going to talk about CRS data. Why is it not on my screen? There we go. My name is Chris Peterson. I work here at the MLS. It should catch up. There we go. All right, so CRS data is a way to look up public record information, tax information. We have all the counties in Idaho, 3 counties in Washington, and Malheur County in Oregon. We've had CRS data for like 6 years. It is not new. It recently came to light more with more people because the tax menu went away. So I have kind of some things I want to cover, but before we jump into that, what things do you want to make sure we talk about with CRS this morning? All right, well, there are 2 ways to get to CRS data, so that's what we're going to look at first, how to get there. In Paragon, under Tax, is CRS Data Tax Search. You can also get there directly from the gateway by clicking on CRS Data. Either one you click on, it will come up and say, are you sure you want to go there? Yes, you do. So CRS Data, it's linked to the MLS, but it's not linked with your personal information from the MLS. And so one of the first things, especially if you're using CRS, is you want to make sure that your information is correct if you're creating a report or anything like that. And so the way to make sure the information is correct is over on the right, you go here to Settings. And on Settings, there are these tabs across the top, and we'll talk about all of them. You don't have to change things, but if you wanted to change things, this is where they are. So first, this is where the branding preferences are. And this is the first tab right here on the top left is branding. So this is where you can upload your company logo or agent image or whatever you want to have there. And then by checking add my branding to reports, when you create your reports, that will be on there automatically. And then over on the right, you've got your personal contact information, your email address, and then a place for a personal note if you were when you email something. And any changes you make here, you just want to make sure you hit save on the bottom to save that information. And when you save it, a little green pop-up comes up that says settings saved. So that's the branding. And we're just going to go across left to right here. The next one's email address. This is your email address. So this is where you could update your email address. So default email address. This is where you update your email address. So if you ever change your email address with the MLS, it's not going to change in CRS data automatically. You would need to come here to update that. And so that's the default email address. That also means if you wanted to have your default email address be a different one than you have with the MLS, you could do that. Maybe you have a team email or something you want to use. So that's email address. Default county search. You might have already seen this when I brought my homepage up. I have 2 counties in there. You can have multiple counties in as your default search, or you can have just one or none. The thing to remember, if you have a default, that's where it's going to look until you change it to look for something else. And we'll look more about searching in a minute, but this is where you set the default counties you want to have in there. So if you know there's counties you're always searching in, you can add those in here. Search settings. Only the 3 options here are the simple search, the advanced search, or the map search. So the search settings, there's the simple search, which is the default one. Advanced gives you more options to enter in there, and the map search. Advanced is something people have called about, like if they want to do the advanced search, and that's great. The thing to remember is you have to know what's on public record. This isn't Google. You're searching a database for things that are there. So you need to be entering the information that you're searching with that's going to be on the public record. So an owner's name and an address are probably the easiest things to do, which already happen on the simple search. Like subdivision. Subdivision is one people want to use. That's great. How does the county have that subdivision spelled and spaced? Because you have to match that. And if there's a different marketed name than legal name, like for example Woodbridge, you can't search for Woodbridge because the subdivision name of Woodbridge for the county is Snorting Bull. So that's the thing to remember is when you're searching county records, you have to know what's on the county records. So if you didn't know it was Snorting Bull, but you knew an address in Woodbridge, you could search for an address. And then when you look at that report of that property, it would have the legal description and would say, lot 1, block 12, Snorting Bull. So that's the thing with the searches. Map directions. This lets you put a starting point in for your map if you want. So if you're going to have map directions, you can put a starting point in there. Saved criteria. If you have any saved criteria for searching or for comparables, you would see that here. I don't have any saved criteria. This is where you would see that. Saved results. If you've saved any results from searching or prospecting, you would see that here. Custom results list. This is an important one. So first off, when you do a search, do you want it always to come up with a simple view or a custom view?
What's the difference?
The simple view is just going to be everything on there turned on. The custom view is going to be your selected items. And so you can come here and you can customize this list. First off, if you want to change the order of things, you can click and drag the little drag icon over here on the right to customize those. You can also uncheck things that you don't want. You'll notice that I don't have like block, square feet, stories checked on mine, and that may be the default. If you want those things checked, you would check those. If you want to just go back to the default, reset to default, resets it, and so now I only have 5 things checked at the top.
Is the last transfer date the last sales date?
Maybe. It's the last transfer date that the county records have. If there was a quick claim deed, that's a transfer. So it's not going to be sale, because as a non-disclosure state, that means different things than it would in a disclosure state.
That's one of the things I miss the most is the last sales date.
Well, that last sale date came from the MLS. It didn't come from the county.
Okay.
That data was in Paragon. And so if it's in Paragon, it may be there. But the only properties that had those were ones that were in the MLS. The county didn't provide that. And it was so if there wasn't a property in the MLS that had sold, it wouldn't have that data on that. That's why every property didn't have it.
Okay.
So let's let you go in and change your results. Comparables results, same thing. What do you want the comparables to show when you're doing a comparables search? And again, you can save what you want, you can organize it, reset to default, puts it back to the default setting. Map list view. So when you do a search, do you want the map view to come up by default or the list view to come up by default? When you're viewing the list, right at the top it says view map. When you're viewing the map, you scroll down and then there's the list. So you can view it either way. And then you can choose the default map type. I would say road is going to be better, especially if you're ever in a situation where your internet is not as robust and strong as it is in some places, because it's going to take longer for the aerial to load, because that's more detail. So road is easier. Property report. Okay, so this is one, and we'll see other ways to customize this in a few minutes, but this is one that people ask about all the time since we lost the tax search. If there's things you don't want on there, because there are a lot of things on that tax report that don't have anything in there because we're a non-disclosure state. And so if there's things you don't want, you can uncheck those things on your property report, and when you save it, they won't be turned on when you create the report. So if you're thinking, oh man, I wish I could put this on one page, there's a few ways to do that. One of the ways is turning off things that we didn't have before. Like the other one didn't have flood zones. Didn't have a whole list of flood zones and what it meant. So if I don't want flood zones, I can turn that off. Or maybe I don't want to have utilities information on there. I don't even know what that has. But if there's things that you don't need, you can turn that off and save it as your default so that your report has what you want. You can also turn these off on reports when you're viewing them, and we'll look at that. So that's the property report. Home improvement. So when you're doing a comparables report, it can do a home improvement section, and you've got where you want to add the improvement value if you add one in there. There's average cost per square foot, house price index, sales price tax appraisal ratio. That's the third one I wouldn't really pick, because as a non-disclosure state, sales price isn't in there for every property. But the house price index is there if they have data. The cost per square foot is based off the comparables, so that one's always going to have numbers if you have comparables.
Can you explain what the house price index is?
When we do the comparables report, we'll look at it.
Okay.
But it uses data from Hanley, some index that does calculations for construction throughout the country, and they use that to come up with the value.
Thank you.
So that's where the settings are. And again, to get to those, when you first get to CRS data, settings are up on the right. Again, just to review how we got here, there's 2 ways to get to CRS. Under the tax menu is CRS Data Tax Search. It is also on the gateway, CRS Data. So that's how you go in and change your settings. Just to the right of settings is help. Help can be really useful. If you're having questions or whatever, you go here to help, and it comes up. They have a video for performing a simple search. If you go to the link that says they have these breadcrumbs at the top. If you go to this MLS Tax Suite Help Center, here's all the help information that's there. And so you can always come here, like maybe I'm having issues finding properties. I've got how the different searches work. So I can see that information. So that's the help. And then before we go in and do a search, just to talk about this first screen. So this is the simple search screen. There's the county. I could go here. If I had a saved search, I could pull it up. And then you enter the information in here you're searching for. Advanced search and map search is the next option here. If I click there, then here is the map that comes up, but I can use that for my search. And then I've got the advanced search options like the location information or property value information or property characteristics, owner profile, and then MLS information. So that's the advanced search, which again, unless you know those exact things you're searching for, like do you know the census tract of the property you're looking for? If you don't, then the advanced search is probably not something you're going to do. The simple search is a lot easier. And then below the search section, on the left are your recent properties that you have viewed. And you can view 5 per page, or you can change it to 20 per page. And you have a long list here of the most recent 20 that you've viewed. And then on the right are the saved properties. So like here's one that I viewed on 31st this morning in Boise. If I click on that little arrow, that brings up the property. And when I'm on it, let me bring it back up here. Up here at the top it says Save Report. When I save it, now you'll notice there's 31st on my Save Property Reports. So when you're viewing the report, if you click Save Report up on the right, that is how you add it to the list of Save Property Reports, and they stay there until you get rid of them. I don't know of a limit. If someone hits a limit, let me know. I searched their help. I couldn't find a limit. I don't think there is one. So if you want to save a report, you can do that. And if you want to get rid of a saved report, you just click on the X, and that removes it from your list of saved reports. You click right on it. There we go. All right, so now we want to talk about doing a search for a property. And so I'm going to take the 2 counties I have here. Those are the ones that were in my default. If you just click in here, you'll notice here are the list of all the Idaho counties. Like I mentioned, we have all the counties in Idaho. This is one of the reasons CRS Data is superior to what we had before. We had like 9 counties, and we were never going to get any more. And the counties we had there were ones that, in the past, Intermountain MLS had created relationships with the assessors to get the data. CRS has other ways of getting the data. We still have relationships with the assessors, and we are providing that data to CRS. And so things that are missing as they're being reported, and not something that's in a different spot, but something that's actually missing that we had in the other reports, we're working on getting that integrated with CRS. So things that are missing, we're working on getting them. But for most things are there, they may just be in a different place. And then after Idaho, there's Malheur County, and then the 3 counties in Washington. And you're not limited to listed properties. You have the entire tax database to look at. So that's what you're looking at here. So we're in Ada County, so we'll pick Ada County here. That's what I'm going to do. And then we want to do a search. When you do a search, if you put your mouse over here on the little question mark, it tells you if you use a wildcard, which is the percent symbol, you can use that like the example is % lake would give you Lakeside, Lakeview, and Cooper Lake. But you put it where you want the variable to be. So if you want lake to be in the middle and not just at the beginning, well, I guess no, it works either way. But you got to have, you'll notice there's no space. That's what I was trying to remember. There's no space there. Most of the time, you're going to have something you're looking up. You're going to have a person's name, an owner's name, or an address. And so I'm going to type in an address in here. It's one that I've looked at before. So 2872, as I start typing it in, choices come up. And then there is 2872 South Pine Flats Way in Meridian. And you'll notice as I entered it, more things came up. And that's the thing you got to remember is if you're entering an owner's name or an address, keep typing it until the choices come up. And if there's a tax record for it, it should come up. Now, before I run the search and bring this one up, are there properties you haven't been able to find? All right. You shouldn't have that problem. I mean, until with new construction, yeah, you couldn't find those in the old one either because until someone lives in the home and assessment's not done, there's not a tax record for it. CRS isn't going to change that because it's the same county data just pulled in a different way. All right, so I click on the address here, and that brings up this property that is unlisted. Now, we'll look at this property report, and then we'll talk about the menu up here at the top. So if there's going to be a picture there, it's because it's been recently listed. Recently is a relative term. I don't know how long they look at property pictures and keep them. But if it's been recently listed, you might see pictures here. Here are the lot dimensions. So it makes it really easy to get the dimensions for entering a listing. And then here we have location information, property summary, which is the type, the land use, and so forth. And the square feet, I will tell you, just like a lot of other records, this is the above grade square footage. The below grade isn't here on the square feet. But you can click edit and you can change that for you. Doesn't change it for everybody. Like RPR, same thing. RPR has above grade square feet. They're getting it from the county. It's not like they're just omitting it. It's just the way it works. Then we have the parcel information. There's the parcel number, the current owner, school information. Now it says school zone information. My guess is this is by location. I don't think they have a map of the school district there. And so if you're entering a listing, you want to verify that it's correct. Then we have the sales history. So the sales history is going to be there if it went through the MLS or if there's public record information about it that they have access to. So we have that information. And on this property, you'll notice that it goes all the way back to 1999 because there hasn't been a lot of sales. Then there's the tax assessment, the taxes, and depending on the county, like Twin Falls County gives 20 years of previous tax assessments. Ada County gives less than that. Some counties don't give any. So it just depends on what the counties give. Mortgage history, if it's available, will be there. And then we have the property characteristics. And you'll notice here it has a basement square feet that's the same as the first floor, but that's not counted in the square feet that we saw before. And that happens in RPR, happens a lot of other places. So people that have basements, that's how it works. So you just have to be aware of that. And then we have construction information. Again, because this is coming from tax and public records, there's a lot of vacancies here because there's not a lot of information that comes from that. Then after the property characteristics, there's the features, the lot information, so the lot square footage, the latitude and longitude, the number of acres is there. Then here's the utilities property characteristics information. The zoning is there for Ada County. I don't think every county has that. And then there's the legal description, the subdivision name, and the flood zone information.
So you actually have to go to the county if you want zoning information, like in Canyon County?
Right. If it's not on the tax records, that's how it's always been because it wasn't in the tax records on the county records before. And I've had people say, why is there discrepancies? It's Idaho. There are 44 counties and 44 ways to format a spreadsheet. In Idaho, free-thinking, libertarian living, that's great, but that also means you don't have top-down organizations saying this is how you do it. That's how it works. In other states that I'm not saying are good or bad, but other states that are more organized, that are less rural, the state says this is the way every county does it, and every county does it the same. That's why Twin Falls has 20 years of tax data, and Boise, Ada County does not. So that's just the way it works, and especially if you're coming from other areas where tax information was different, it's going to be, I don't want to say less organized, but every county does it themselves. And an example of that is we didn't have Gooding County in our tax list, and the reason we didn't is because Gooding County was not in a position to be able to provide data because they had a fire in the 90s and half their records were destroyed. And so they had no way to electronically provide that to the MLS. Now, CRS Data has Gooding County data. How do they get that? Well, how do title companies get it? That's a great question. I'm pretty sure they all have the same kind of resources they're using that the MLS didn't have access to, Intermountain MLS didn't have access to. And so tax information can be frustrating. The more rural the county, the less information is going to be available because it's not just the way that it is. So, all right, so here we have this big long report, and one of the calls that we got, one of the first days we had CRS as the exclusive tax item was, how do I print this on one page? I want a one-page report like I used to have. So the thing to remember is that other report's gone. That menu's not coming back. Black Knight has tried for many years to wean people off that tax report. Before we were even in this building, before COVID hit, we were working on this process. And so it's just taken that long for us to get there. So a couple of things. First is if there's something you don't need, like we talked about, like the utilities might be something I don't need. So back up here, utilities area, you can click on that little triangle and that will close that section for this report. In the settings, had I unchecked it, that section wouldn't be there at all. So that's why we talked about that in the settings. So if there's a section you don't need, you can just not have it on there. The other thing you can do is up here at the top, you have save and print. And you'll notice in both of these options, there's original and condensed. So I'm going to go here to print and go to original. It's just going to bring the preview up. I'm not really going to print it. But you'll notice this is 3 pages long. Well, 2.5 pages. That's what the original would be. If I come here and I do condensed, now it's 1.5 pages. And if I wanted it to be just one, I could come here and I didn't need to move the map, that was put there. I could turn other things off, like maybe I don't need the extra features section or the flood zone information. So now when I close those and I come back up here to print and I do condensed, it's 1 page and a little more, so it's a little less. So you can go in there and you can choose how to make it smaller if you want. That's what you can do. And then if you want to save it, I can save the original, the condensed, or in Spanish. If I save the condensed, it downloads this PDF. Again, printing it to a PDF would be the same thing. And so now we have this 1.25 page report on that property. And so that's one of the ways you can make that smaller. And then if you want to share it, you can email the original, the condensed, or in Spanish. If let's say I want to email the original, put who I'm sending it to. If I can spell my email address right, there we go. Trainer@gmail.com, and send it. You can also get yourself a copy of the email. It tells you it's been sent. And then we'll go here to Gmail. Sorry, it's making me verify because apparently I haven't logged in on this one before. Yes. All right, so here's my CRS Data property report. And there's the PDF. And I did the original, so this is the one that's 3 pages long. And if you wonder, if I pause here at the bottom, you'll notice CRS stands for Courthouse Retrieval System. It has nothing to do with Certified Residential Specialist or whatever that designation means. I had someone think it was related, and it's not. So that's how you would email a report. And then we already talked about saving it, so if I hit save, now it says it's been saved, so when I go back here to the front page, there's the Pine Flats Way report that's there. And so that's how you would search for a property. And if I wanted to search for an owner, I'm just going to put a name in here. You'll notice as I start typing it in, owner's name comes up. I can hit, or a street address because it's using all those things, but if I hit view more, then I've got more options here. And the more you type in, because obviously there are a lot of Wilsons that first names begin with something other than A and B. And so as you put more in, more comes up. Is there a way to get a list of all the Wilsons from right here? No, because you're searching for a property. That's what you're doing here, is you're searching for an individual property, and so you're using the owner's name to find that here. And just one other thing with searching with the property information, again, like I said, we have all counties here. So if I go to Bear Lake County, for example, which is in southeast Idaho, and I type in Jeffrey Fredericks, who I have no idea who that is. There's his property in a cul-de-sac in Fish Haven. And I've got the same kind of information for a property in Bear Lake that we have for a property in Meridian. And so I'm able to pull that information up. So that's another thing that CRS does that we haven't had until we had CRS. Questions about searching for properties? All right, so another way to search is the map search. So I go here to the advanced and map search. It says search by map. So again, with searching by map, the thing to remember is you have to know where you're going. You have to know where you're looking at. So I bring the map up, and if I just start double clicking, that's going to zoom in, and once it gets to a certain level, then it's going to start, find out where I am, then it's going to start displaying property information. And if I want to view a larger map, I can hit view larger map, and that increases it. And then I have some filters over here on the left that I can use. So we'll zoom in here, kind of where we were before with Pine Flats. And I'll zoom in just a little bit more. So then I've got these properties here. Over on the left, I've got some filters. So maybe I want to find last sale date. All right, let's do the sale date. There we go. And I want to be from the 1st to 25th today. And now if I hit view results, it's bringing up properties because I hadn't isolated an area in the map, so it's showing me all of the county where that was. So if I go back here, and there's 595 properties. So if I go back to my search, still have the date there. Let's zoom into where we were before. And then if I want to isolate a section of the map over on the right, I can click on this little, well, I just mouse over the magnifying glass and I can draw a shape. So I'm just going to do a polygon, and everywhere I click, I'm adding a line. I'm not holding the button down, so we'll just do this section right here. Include selection. And so now it's only looking where this area is highlighted on the map. So now there are 3 properties that match my last sale date within that area. And if I hit view results, there's the map showing where they are, and there are the 3 properties. And if I click on a property, that brings up the report just like we looked at. This is one that recently sold, so there's the pictures. If it's a recently sold or currently listed property or pending, there'll be a little price tag here. And you'll notice it shows this sold on February 10th. I can click on the MLS number. And that pops up the MLS full detail, and I can view that information right there. So if you see the little price tag and click the MLS number, then it brings up that property report from CRS. So you can bring that up. And if I go back to results, then I'm back on my results here. If I go back to search, then I'm back on the search. All right, so that is the map property search. Again, we're still talking property searches here. We're not looking at any prospecting yet. So that's the next thing we're going to talk about is prospecting. So prospecting is like farming owner data. And in the old system, you were really limited on what you could do. They made it more complicated. But on CRS, you go here to prospecting, and just like we just looked at, it uses a map, and then over here on the left, you have all your filters. So I'm going to keep working with Ada County, and if I wanted to type a subdivision name in, I could do that. Or I can come and enter a shape on the map. So let's say I wanted to do a subdivision name. So let's do Thousand Spring.
CHOA.
That's the HOA. So we want contain Thousand Spring is the subdivision. So, no, that's not what I wanted. That's owner's name.
Oh.
Contains Thousand Spring. So now here's Thousand Spring sub number 1. There we go. So owner name was up here. Subdivision was right here. So does that make sense? You're typing this field that's searching lots of things. So owner name was the top. Subdivision was below. So now I've got the subdivision in there for Thousand Springs, which is this area right here at Eagle and Victory.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. How did you get to this?
You just click prospecting up there at the top,
Oh, okay.
and that brings you to prospecting. And then I selected my county on the left, and then in the owner name, address, or subdivision field, I typed in Thousand Spring. I'll do it again here. When I type in Thousand Spring, Thousand spring. Down here it says subdivision contains Thousand Springs, so I'm going to select that. There's Thousand Springs sub number 1, which is the only one. And then actually there's number 2 right there next to it. So now I've got them both. So now I'm looking at those 2 subdivisions that I'm searching for. Or I could have come here and drawn a shape. That's the thing with the subdivisions. If there's a different phase that you're not aware of, or if there's 2 subdivisions right next to each other that people think are one, using the shape will let you collect all that map area, whereas by the name of the subdivision, you're only getting the things that fall under that name of the subdivision. So then here is the filter. So let's say, for example, I wanted to come here and I wanted to find absentee out-of-state owners. So I select that, and now, and when I hit update, instead of showing me everything, it's showing me the 11 that are absentee out-of-state owners. So that means that the property address and the owner's mailing address, the owner's mailing address is outside of Idaho. That's what it's showing me here. And then once I've got these here, I can select them all. I can choose the ones I want to keep or remove. So let's say I want to remove this one right here. So I hit remove and it takes it off my list.
Maybe that's where I did wrong, is I didn't click.
Yeah, if you don't click remove, it's not going to do anything. Then you have 2 ways to remove, to export them. Now before I hit export, I want you to notice that this export's remaining. You only have 5,000 a month. If you need more than 5,000, let's talk afterwards again. You can explain to me why you need more than 5,000 a month. If you do need more than that, get a buddy and now you have 10,000 because you're exporting a file that you can keep. So it's not like I have to export this over and over again. I export it once and it saves a spreadsheet or a PDF that I can use for my mailing labels. I mean, I had someone say 5,000 wasn't enough. You couldn't even do this with mailing labels for the Ada County assessor. That was not an option. You had to jimmy rig it to export it as a spreadsheet because technically you weren't supposed to be able to do that. So this is built in to let you do it. So, yeah.
So how do we get the out-of-state address?
It's when I export it, it's going to be on there because when you pull up that county record, it's got the property address, the owner's address is their out-of-state address.
Okay, so it'll have that.
Yeah. So there's 2 ways to do it. So I'm going to first do create labels. So I go here to create labels, and I can choose some options here. Do I want to skip ones that don't have zip codes? What's the order I want them displayed in? What address do I want them to use? Do I want to include a line for or current resident? I would recommend leaving the default settings. I wouldn't go through and change all these things. And then you can choose, there's 3 types of Avery labels. And what it's going to do, it's going to print a PDF that then you would print on your label. So let's say I'm using this larger one here. And then I can choose which one I'm starting with. So if you're a person that prints a lot of labels and you want to make sure you're using them efficiently, maybe I'm starting on this label. And I could do it as a Word document or a PDF. Word would let you edit the data. So you could edit the label. I'm just going to do a PDF though. Hit create labels. So then this comes up. Idaho Code 74120. I am not an attorney. I don't play one on TV. So if you are concerned to make sure you're compliant with this, talk to an attorney, talk to your broker. I will tell you how I think you're compliant, but I'm not an attorney, so don't take this as legal advice. When I hit accept, that means it's going to do it for me and then export the data. So here are the labels. The way I think you're compliant is at the bottom of each address, or below each name, it says or current resident. That's the way I think you're compliant. Is that it is addressed to one person, but it also goes to anyone who's the current resident of that address. But if you're concerned, talk to your attorney. RPR, if you prospect an RPR and export data, you get the same pop-up. And I'm sure other states, not just Idaho, have similar laws that have to do with dealing with someone, soliciting to someone that you don't have a relationship with. Because you put or current resident, you're saying it could be anybody. I mean, here's a name we think is here, but anybody here would work. So that's what you're saying. So you'll notice that all these addresses are not in Idaho. And then they're spaced in a way that they would print on the label I selected. And then I print it off, and then I've got my labels. And then I, of course, can save this PDF and use it anytime I want to later on. And now I'm down to $49.30 for the rest of the month. Export. This lets you export a CSV spreadsheet that will work in Excel. So I can edit the fields if I want. Again, hit accept. And I can choose the columns that I want to have. Not every one of these columns will have data in them. They have standard columns selected, but if you wanted to choose other ones, you could do that. And then when I hit export, it's going to export this CSV, which is the same list here. And if I open it, it'll open up in Excel, and there's the list. And so if I wanted to be able to do a mail merge or something and send a letter that was personally addressed to someone, I could do this. Again, if you're going to do that, make sure you're compliant, because this isn't a label. It doesn't have the or current resident. And so you want to make sure that if that's what's making it compliant, that you're making sure your correspondence has that on there. But this lets you export that data. And then again, you can save that. So if you wanted to export all the homes in a subdivision, and then you were going to prospect to those owners, maybe they're not aware of what the market's doing in their area, you could easily get that data out of CRS. And so that is the prospecting. And if I come over here, I have other filters I can put in here. So let's take out the absentee out-of-state owner, and maybe this time I want to find, let's see, ownership duration. Maybe I want between 10 and 20 years. So now it's found 3. So you can go in and you can target based on the public record information on the property. Does that make sense? There's lots of things here, ownership duration, and if I don't want that, I can just clear it out. Owner type we talked about. I can see listings on here as well. Mortgage age, this is where you get to the public record information. Some mortgage information, if their lender isn't sharing data, like a lot of big lenders share data with each other. That's how title companies get it. It's out there for other people to see. That's where we get the mortgage history information on CRS. But because we're a non-disclosure state, there's a possibility if their mortgage was a private loan or a private lender, it's not going to be in there. In disclosure states, that are the other 41 states in the country, there's 9 non-disclosure states. When you sell your house to your brother, that's public record. And the price that it's sold for, all that information is public record. In just non-disclosure states, it's not. And so you're limited on what you're going to see based on what happened with that property. Other questions about prospecting? Does that make sense? Again, the subdivision is not a bad way to do it if you know the name of the subdivision. If you don't, and so I'll just clear the subdivision out of here, and we'll just do the same kind of thing, but we'll look at the map, how you would do it. The thing to remember with the map, and I've had people ask about this in class before as well, is if you are using the map, find the right spot where I want to be. We'll do Thousand Spring again. You have to make sure you just remember you don't hold the mouse button down. You're just clicking. So like if I wanted maybe just a part of this area, I'd come here to draw in whatever shape I want to draw. Let's do a rectangle this time. I click in the one corner, and I'm not holding the button down. I move to where I want it to end, and I click again, and then I choose include or exclude. So maybe I want all of a certain area except this one spot. I could do that too. So if I do include, now it's including all those areas that I've highlighted. And it's got my filter in here, which is the duration. And the owner type. So now it's showing me all the properties. Other thoughts, questions, concerns, comments about prospecting? All right, so now we're going to see how this is linked to Paragon and a few other reporting things that CRS Data has. So I'm going to go here to Paragon. I ran a search earlier. Any property you pull up, so let's pull up this one in Bainbridge. There are icons over here on the right. And on the full detail, there are 2 CRS Data icons. The CRS Data Property Report, which is the tax report we saw earlier, and I'll click on it in a minute, and the CRS Data Comparables Report. There are other reports that we'll look at in a second. So if I click on the CRS Data Property Report, it opens up a new tab, Takes me right to that property report, and I will tell you, sometimes the map just does not land the way it's supposed to, and I don't know if it can't find the address. I don't know. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The older a property is, the easier the map is to find it. But here's the property information, just like we saw before. Tax assessment, tax years, like the other report we looked at, that's all there. So when you're looking at a property, CRS Data property report takes you right there. Now, there have been times where the link on the listing doesn't come up. If the parcel number is entered wrong, sometimes you can't find it. But if you go in and do a search for the address, it'll come up. Because just like the old tax data, it uses the parcel number to link to the properties. And with Ada County, this has really never been an issue because parcel number is pretty simple. It's R and then whatever it is. In Canyon County, there is an account number and a parcel number, and the way it came from county to Paragon Tax before, the account number almost always started with an R, the parcel number started with a different letter. But there were never spaces. The actual parcel number has spaces. So we'll look at one in Canyon County here. Let me do my search that I just did, but we'll do it in Nampa, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Oh, before I forget, on here it says County GIS site, County Assessor's Report. This is Ada County. So if I click View County Assessor's Report, that takes me to the same report we had before from the tax data. And if I click on the county GIS site, it takes me to their GIS site, and if you know how to use it, awesome, you can use it and find the information there that you always found before. I don't know how the site works, I haven't used it before, but it takes you there. All right, so back here to Nampa. And we'll find, I think this is an older one. And so here's the, you'll notice the parcel number here starts with an N. That's the correct one. It's not the R. And if I click here on the CRS Data Property Report, it says there was an error loading. I say correct one, but it really isn't the correct one. So this is 12311 Essex. So 12311 Essex Way. Here's this property, and you'll notice that is the parcel number right there. And I've had people say, well, that's not correct. Okay, so here's the county assessor site. Start your search. We're going to do an address search. And what was it? 12311 Essex. So 12311 Essex. Let's just try the 12311. There we go. 12311 South Essex. There is the parcel number. You will notice there is a space there. This is from the Canyon County Assessor site. Now, this number right here isn't wrong because they probably got that from the title company, and that's how it's provided to the title company as a parcel number. But you'll notice from the county site, that is the parcel number. Had that been entered that way with the space and then the 0, the CRS data link would have worked. So as we begin using CRS as our sole tax source, that should happen less often because guess what? There's the parcel number. So that should make it easier for the tax data to be linked. Because I've worked at the MLS for 18 years. I live in Canyon County. My biggest pet peeve for the entire time I've worked here was when agents would put in the account number instead of the parcel number, and the red tax icon would not be there. If you were to go back and look at the bulletins or the blog posts on the old member site, you would see a repeated theme happening every year. It would say, are you missing the tax icon? And I would put the same information out there. Make sure you're using the parcel number, not the account number, because if the account number was used, it wouldn't work. And the problem was the account number started with an R that looked like the parcel number from Ada County, and that's what was put in there. Because it was coming from the county and it is county data, it isn't a violation, it's not wrong, it just wouldn't link the tax data. Well, now if the parcel number is not correct, it says the CRS data icon's there, but I mean, here's a property that's decades old, but it didn't come up because they didn't have the correct parcel number in there. So that will start happening, and people will figure out, oh, I need to put the right number in there, and it's going to be the number that's being called parcel number, which we can see is the parcel number. So that's really, it was only a Canyon County issue, but now hopefully that will go away. But that's when you're looking at a property in counties that have public data available, there's a link to the site. Now I had someone ask, why can't they just link to the property? Because you can't. You have to do a search. That's how Canyon County works. Canyon County's online information is different than Ada County's. And Ada County does it different than Canyon County does, so that's just the way it is. All right, so back here to Paragon, we have the two icons that are here. Let's go back to my one in Meridian. And then if I go here, the second icon is the CRS Data Comparables Report. So CRS has a built-in comparables report. You click on it, it brings you to their comparables tool. Comparables like a CMA. And it's got these filters up here at the top. Like by default, it's looking within 3/4 of a mile. If I go here to last sale date, it's looking in the last 12 months. So I can change that. Characteristics, maybe I want things. It's doing 20% of square feet and 20% of acreage. If I want to change that, I can do that. And then I can come here, and it's got 15 of 50 plus, so maybe I want to change this to 10% of square feet of acreage, excuse me, and 10% of square feet. And so now I have 15 of 23 properties, because the most it can show me is 15. So let's change this from the last 6 months to the last 3 months. So now I've got 9 in the last 3 months that are within 3/4 of a mile, that are 10% plus or minus on the square feet and 10% plus or minus on the acreage. And I can scroll through and view the properties here. I can scroll down and get a little more information. So there's the subject, and there's these properties nearby. And I can view it on a map, so I can see where they are in relation to the property. I can also view it in a list. So there's the map, and if I scroll down, there's the list. And then I can hit create report, and that lets me create a report. If I want to add a client for this report, let's say this is going to be Sally Seller. I can view it, email it, download it. If I view it, it's creating kind of a presentation type report. There's the property created for that person. There's the map showing where the properties are. And then there's the cost per square foot times by the square footage of the subject. And then there's the sales price tax assessment ratio. And then here's the sales price of the comparables and the cost per square foot of the comparables, which you can go in and choose the ones you want or remove, so it can make it look a little more accurate. And then you've got the properties. And then here is how it comes up with the calculation. So the house price index, let's see, it's used, well, there's no sales data for this property, but it uses the government house price index from the Federal Office of Federal Housing Enterprise Oversight. So that's how they're coming up with the data. So it explains to you how they come up with it. And so that's that kind of report. And I can come here and go to each part of the report I want to go to. If I go back to my list of reports, I could email this or download it. When you download it, it just downloads a PDF. There's the PDF. And then it's just got all those sections. But now they're just static PDF pages. The other kind of comparable report you can do is called a quick CMA. And this is the one CRS Data had previously. So I go to quick CMA. So here's this property. That's where it's located. And I can again come down here and change these. I want to do within, let's do a half a mile. And plus or minus 2 bedrooms, plus or minus 2 baths, and square feet. We'll do the same thing, 10% square feet, 10% acreage. And now it's found, because I did a little less distance, it found 4. Again, 2 of them are still across Chinden. But there's the properties, there's the list of the properties, and then up here at the top, you've got the home improvements and adjustments. So if you want to put in home improvements, like let's say they've upgraded the kitchen or whatever, this uses Hamley Wood to calculate a value for it. So like you put in what you put in and then it depreciates it. And then you've got the market value calculation, which explains how they came up with that. So this is just a one-page report, and so under comparables, that's the quick CMA versus the client CMA and client report. And because we're a non-disclosure state, the only listing data that's going to come up for sold information is the MLS data. Whereas in a disclosure state, you'd get any property that is sold. And if I hit view MLS info, that brings up that full detail report like we saw before with the little flag when you click on the little price tag. So that's comparables. Now, facts and figures we'll talk about here in a second. If you go here on Paragon, if you go here to the actions menu, there's other icons here, like this is where the Cardo Front flood insurance is. But you'll notice there are 5 CRS data reports here. We already looked at property report and comparables. I guess, sorry, 4, not 5. The other 2 are demographics and map property. Map property, like it sounds, is going to bring up that big map, and it's going to show us where the property is, which I don't know why it's having a hard time finding this one, but there it is. And then over here we have the filter like we saw before. So just like going and searching, it can bring up that property. The demographics brings up census data. Now, the thing with the demographics you just have to remember is Idaho is a non-disclosure state. So there are things here they don't have because it isn't available in public record. So here we've got population information. Again, it's that area that it's looking at. And I can come here and change the numbers or percentages. It's got the age range there, household income, education levels, professions, occupancy, owner or rented, and the kind of property, single family detached, number of bedrooms, move-in years. So you can see a big increase from 2010 through 2015, which is the last time data was available. And then we have the year built, mortgages as percent of income, mortgage costs, and gross rent averages. So that's the population demographics. If I go here to facts and figures, there are other things here, like demographics we just looked at. But they also have area sales detail report, which will be nothing because we're a non-disclosure state. So you'll notice 565 properties, sales summary. It's got the owner, but there's no sale price information there because we're a non-disclosure state.
Which report are you looking at?
This is the area sales detail.
I mean, when you went from MLS to there.
I just clicked on the demographics.
Oh.
But once you're on demographics, then I just went up here to facts and figures.
Where did you bring up that menu and had the demographics on?
So in Paragon, right up here it says actions. And you go to actions, and it has all the icons that are on the full detail, plus other ones that obviously can't fit on there. Like the flood insurance Cardo Front, that's one we added at the beginning of the year. So if I wanted to get flood insurance, I could see that. The Cloud CMA is there. Form Simplicity, Instanet, those are all there. Sales trend report. Ada County, we'll do residential. This is where we're starting at. And it's going to look for 1 mile. No created sales record in the last 180 days because we're non-disclosure. Area statistics. So here we have, again, it's based off this zip code, gives the sales price data, and again, this is public record information. That's why it's going to look different than the MLS. Like median 112,000. I don't think we've seen a number in Ada County that low for a long time. So you just need to remember when you're looking at this information that it's going to be different. Like assessment price data, assessment they have, but they don't have sales data. And like when we were looking at it, that report that had the sales history, if it's not from the county, it's coming from the MLS. And so if there was nothing happening either place, because nothing got reported to the county, it won't have any of that stuff. Then we have the commercial property improvements, which just shows how many there are, but you notice there's no numbers there because of non-disclosure. And then again, assessment information's there. We talked about the demographics. If I click on there, same demographics we just saw. Directions, that lets me get driving directions. It takes me to big maps, and I can put an address in and get directions from where I am to that property. School reports takes me to the National Center for Educational Statistics. And I can choose my distance, say within 1 mile, we want that zip code, and I hit search, and here are the schools. So I can click on the school, and then it comes up with the report for that school. And while this is useful information, it's coming from, again, from the National Center for Educational Studies. You could go there yourself and pull that up. It's not something you'd have to go to CRS Data to get specifically. But if you're here, it can be useful. The subdivision info. So you'll notice it's showing the subdivision name there, and then sales history, which is 0, which that would be great if it could have that information. And then how many homes in the subdivision, improvements, average year built, average age of home, square feet averages. So it's got statistical information, but the sales information is not going to be there. And we've actually had someone call and complain about that, and I said, call the legislature. That's who you should complain to, because they're the ones that can control if we're a disclosure or non-disclosure state. So, and people that have come from other states that are working here now, they had access to a lot of information that we don't have because of our non-disclosure status. So that's the thing to remember, that in a disclosure state, there's a lot more information that's available. So if you have questions, you can always reach out to us. We talked about the help earlier. The help is there, and they have a lot of videos you can watch. You can also come down here, and if you go to the updates, it tells you what updates have been done. Or if you go to like the videos and webinars, they have there's the tutorials. They also have webinars you can participate in. But if you find things that are missing, not in a different place, but that we don't have, let us know and we can reach out to CRS Data. That link to the county assessor record for Ada County, we didn't have that before in CRS, and I don't know why exactly. But once the other tax data went away, that was one of the first things people called about. We don't have a link to the tax data anymore, and so we knew we had that link in the data that was provided to us, and so we reached out to CRS, and I think within the next day it was there. And so if there's something that's missing, let us know, because you guys use this tax data a lot differently than I do trying to teach a class or anything else. And so if there's something that you're used to having previously and it's not there, let us know and we can reach out to CRS Data to make sure we have it. We've really tried to make sure that there isn't any vacancies. It may look different, but it's still there. That's the whole thing. And yeah, if you run into issues, let us know. And on the gateway where you log in, our phone number is right here. The email addresses are right there. If you're in Paragon and you want to get that information, on the front page of Paragon, if you go to the member website, and if you're logged into the gateway, you just hit login again, it will log you right in. You can go here to resources, and there's the email addresses and phone number to reach out to us. So whether it's on the gateway or the members page, we're available. And like I said, if you find things that we're missing, if there's vacancies in the data, definitely let us know so we can make sure that CRS Data either gets the information or can try to get it if it's not something that we didn't have before. So that's all I've got for you guys this morning. So thanks for coming. Hopefully it was helpful. So have a good afternoon.